So the next topic we got is sports jiu-jitsu controversy. What's
All right.
going on with this, Angel?
So it's going to be a two-part question. So my first part of this question is going to be this. Will the UFC, so hold on, first let me give a quick context. The UFC is now starting to get into sport jiu-jitsu, and
Hmm.
they're starting to kind of try and what they did for UFC in those early development stages, they're trying to bring that to sport jiu-jitsu and kind of give it a platform where it has a unified rule set and trying to build it up, right? Kind of like Power Slap. So one of the people they signed was Mikey Musumeci, and I think he was the first person that UFC has signed now. Now, because of that, and Dana White's getting into that, my question, this is a two-part question. The first part is, will the UFC's involvement in sport jiu-jitsu be a pro or a con for the sport as a whole?
I
Okay.
think it'll be I I think it'll be a I think it'll be a pro.
Okay, so at some point I'm gonna interject because I'm gonna ask part two of the question. So you say pro,
Hmm.
Zeke. What do you say?
The UFC is involved. Repeat the question. I want to make sure I understand it
Will
100% clear.
Will the UFC's involvement in sport jiu-jitsu be a pro or a con for the sport as a whole?
I'll stay calm.
You'll say con.
Oh,
Yeah.
See, so I've been 50-50. I've been thinking about this honestly all week, and okay, I'm gonna say pro, but I'm saying pro because of what the next question is gonna be. So you guys give me your answers, and then I'll give you my answer, and then it'll segue into our next question. So
Okay.
why do
I
you think be a pro?
I say pro because I mean the UFC is the biggest MMA organization, and they're gonna help put eyes on the product.
Okay.
And the more eyes you have on the product means the more sponsorships and the more money that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be involved. Now, I'm talking about for the sport in the long run. I could see that as a positive. Now, in the future, that might change because you know how sometimes when the UFC or any big time organizations, when they get involved in things, things change and they might implement certain rules that
That
are
people
different.
like, yeah.
Uh, they bad blood. I mean, because it's not like they're going to be if once the UFC they put more money behind it, if they're considered to be the number one product, number two is going to be down here compared to them. So you might not have the same type of money.
Conversation.
Anything like look at pro wrestling. Like you have the WWE, it's up here. Nobody else is the next AEW is down here compared to WWE. It's not even comparable, especially with money and everything, notoriety. I think that the UFC just has a better chance of making it more legitimate and a bigger household name. Now,
Okay.
what do you think? What do you think, Z?
I think that in order to, well, first of all, I can understand why you would think that it's a pro, and for all the reasons that you just mentioned. Being a big name and big brand with anything that you touch or that you associate yourself with is going to bring in the audience that it already has, and it's going to bring in a new set of eyes, which would be good for a sport that just doesn't get televised and promoted at the level in which it probably should. It's very difficult to be able to get people interested in this when you can see a grappling or jiu-jitsu component in MMA. It's like, why would I watch it and just being boring with people just grappling alone when I can watch people grapple and I can strike, which is why they started like the combat jiu-jitsu and things like that. So I can understand why one would think that. But the thing is that if you look classically at what happens when MMA gets a part of something, it begins to try to change the base of it as a whole. And that takes away from actual sport itself. So I'll use as an example. Karate combat.
Hmm.
We love karate combat. We think that the at it,
Yeah.
at its inception at the beginning. Let me back up. It was a great concept. It
Yeah.
was a fantastic concept that highlighted or gave the opportunity and ability for actual people who were not interested in participating in MMA per se or kickboxing to be able to go out and actually showcase traditional martial arts to the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then we started getting some failed UFC fighters and
Mm-hmm.
some people who were not successful in the realm of MMA and they were a big draw, like the UFC, because of the UFC. They started going over to this particular league, and then what happened? The rules began to slowly cater, towards these individuals and began capitulating towards the people in which the league was created for. I believe at some point they'll realize that in order for us to be able to get and keep, not get, but keep a consistent core group of individuals and eyes on it, that they're going to have to make modifications to the rules that are not going to be beneficial for the people in which the sport was created for. Right. So then you're going to start seeing some of these people phase out, the people that we love, and you're going to start seeing more MMA oriented individuals coming in. And if you don't believe that, I want you just to look at judo as a great example of that. There are certain moves and certain judo and that they won't allow, like, you can't shoot double legs and stuff like that in judo competitions because it was an influx of wrestlers that was coming over there because wrestling had got big, and wrestlers who wasn't really good judokas, but they were wrestlers, was coming in and they were slamming and getting takedowns. And then the judokas could not actually utilize their art and their craft. So as a result, they're like, look, we're going to have to ban some of these moves. Even the IBJJF, there's certain moves that they won't let you be able to do because they know that if we start allowing these people to come over, we're going to actually lose our sport itself, the people who it was created for. So I think that to answer the question, I'll let you go ahead and segue. Yeah. I think that overall is going to be a con because I know that they're not going to be able to keep the integrity of it the way that it is and the purity of it. They're going to have to change to be able to keep an audience.
Okay. Hey, I like that point you just brought up. Real G Money, he's loving this conversation. A good point that you just made, Zeke, and now that you said that, you're making me go back on the con side because now you're making me think of, imagine if Point Karate Tournament said now we're going to start allowing knockouts. We're going to lose that core, what we are, and then so you're making me okay, like that makes sense. I was saying pro, and now I'm still in the middle. Honestly, I was saying pro because I was saying from sponsorship dollars, they can start getting the money that they deserve, right? I was on the con side of it also because I also said, now, one, what stops that? If I want to watch grappling, but I want to watch striking, that it's still going to lead to MMA. MMA will still be the part that everyone's going to lead to. And it's almost like now you're competing within your own brand. And that's where I was saying,
right.
And that's where I was saying, like, okay, I don't see how that will work, right? And that will end up hurting jiu-jitsu because more people are going to bash it than see it as its own entity. Now, the other reason why I thought it could be a pro, and now this is going to segue into my next question, this second part of it,